If you have ADHD, you know it can feel like this constant, weird tug of war. On one side, you are just completely exhausted, but on the other, you're dealing with this relentless hyperactivity. So let's unpack this paradox, because we need to understand the science behind this super confusing but really common experience. I mean, does this just hit home for you? That feeling of being totally and completely tired but wired? You've hit a wall, you're absolutely drained, but at the same time, you just can't sit still. It's like your body is buzzing with electricity, but your brain is just begging for a shutdown. It's frustrating, it's confusing, but for so many people with ADHD, it's just normal. And this is the core conflict, right here. On the one hand, you've got that classic 2 p.m. crash, where you can barely keep your eyes open. But then, on the other hand, it's midnight and your brain is just buzzing. It will not shut off. You feel completely spent, but your leg is still bouncing. Or you find yourself pacing around the room. These two things aren't just happening at the same time, they're actually deeply connected.
So the big question is, why? Why does this even happen? Well, I can tell you the answer is not a lack of willpower. It's all rooted in your brain chemistry. So let's dive into the science of how the ADHD brain can get kind of stuck in this overdrive mode.
Okay, it all starts with these things called neurotransmitters. The easiest way to think about them is like the brain's traffic controllers. Specifically, two of them, dopamine and norepinephrine, are in charge of our focus, our motivation to get things done, and our overall energy levels. They're the ones telling our brain when to go, when to slow down, and what to pay attention to.
So here's the kicker. In an ADHD brain, the supply of these traffic controllers is low. There just isn't enough dopamine and norepinephrine to keep the whole system running smoothly. Just picture a super busy intersection, right? But it only has half the traffic cops it needs. What you get is chaos. Some cars are stalled, others are speeding right through. And that creates this fundamental imbalance right from the start.
So what does the brain do about this imbalance? It definitely doesn't just give up. First off, it tries to compensate. It starts working way harder than a neurotypical brain just to maintain focus. And that constant grinding effort, it's mentally exhausting. Then, to make up for that low dopamine, the brain goes on this desperate hunt for stimulation. And that search is what we actually see as restlessness, fidgeting, and hyperactivity. So you see, the exhaustion and the hyperactivity are really just two sides of the exact same coin.
And this whole thing, it doesn't take long to turn into a really nasty cycle. This isn't just a one-time thing. For a lot of people, it's a daily pattern where the exhaustion and the restlessness are just constantly feeding each other.
And this quote, man, it just flips the whole script. That restlessness you feel, that need to move, it's not necessarily a sign that you have too much energy. A lot of the time, it's a coping mechanism. It's your brain desperately trying to generate some stimulation just to stay awake and fight off that deep mental fatigue it's feeling.
And this cycle gets its fuel from a few key places. So you've got this intense hyperfocus, right? You get locked onto something interesting and you just burn through all your mental fuel, which of course leads to a massive crash. Then, when it's time to sleep, your brain won't turn off, so you get poor rest and you start the next day already in the red. Throw in the constant drain of switching between tasks and the huge energy cost of managing intense emotions, and you've got a perfect storm for burnout. Okay, so that's the problem, and yeah, it's complex and it's biological, but here's the good news. You are not powerless here. There are real, concrete strategies you can use to help regulate this cycle and get back a sense of control over your own energy. Regaining control really boils down to three main things. 3 pillars, if you will. This isn't about finding some single magic bullet. It's about building a solid, supportive structure for your brain. We're going to focus on the foundation, which is sleep, then the daily practice of balancing your energy, and finally, the long-term power of developing new coping skills. First up is sleep, because let's be real, it's the foundation for literally everything else. For an ADHD brain, consistency is basically your superpower. Sticking to a regular bedtime and wake-up time, even on the weekends, helps regulate your body's internal clock. A non-negotiable screen-free buffer before bed is also huge for quieting the mind. And don't sleep on simple tools. White noise can drown out those little distractions that keep your brain going, and something like a weighted blanket can provide that calming physical input to help settle a restless body.
All right, next up, how do you actually manage your energy during the day? The key here is to be proactive, not reactive. Don't wait until you're already completely fried. Schedule short breaks. They can even be just 5 minutes to stop your brain from redlining on a hard task. And here's a really important shift in thinking. Instead of fighting that restlessness, you gotta channel it.
A quick walk or using a fidget tool isn't a distraction, it's a strategic way to give your brain the low-level stimulation it's craving without totally derailing your focus. It's all about giving that energy a safe place to go. And finally, we've got the long game, building skills that actually stick. This is all about learning to work with your brain, not against it. Therapy, like CBT, can give you some incredibly powerful practical tools for managing the anxiety and negative thoughts that so often come with ADHD. It's also about ditching the time management strategies that just don't work for you and finding systems that do, like time blocking or visual timers, things that embrace how your brain operates. And, critically, learning to identify and regulate your emotions helps plug one of the biggest hidden energy drains there is.
So, after all that, the science, the cycle, the strategies, what's the big takeaway here? What's the most important thing to remember? It really just boils down to one simple but really powerful idea.
This right here is the most important thing to remember. Feeling tired but wired is not a flaw in your character. It's not a sign of weakness. It's just a totally logical, predictable outcome of how your brain is wired. And look, understanding that doesn't magically fix everything, but it lets you approach the problem with self-compassion and with strategies that actually work instead of just beating yourself up with frustration.
So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. Knowing what you know now, that your mental energy is this finite, precious resource, what is one small, realistic boundary you can put in place this week to protect it? Maybe it's a hard stop time for work. Maybe it's a scheduled break you actually take in the afternoon. Or maybe it's just saying no to one extra thing. What's it going to be for you?